Maya Torres wiped the black grease from her hands with an old red cloth. The cloth was covered in oil stains from months of use. She had just finished fixing the carburetor on an old Honda motorcycle. The bike belonged to Mrs. Chen from down the street. The woman needed it to get to her night shift at the hospital, but she did not have much money to pay for repairs at expensive shops. The warehouse was quiet that evening. It was an old building on Riverside Avenue that nobody used anymore. The windows were broken, and the walls had cracks running through them like spider webs. But for Maya and her friends, it was perfect. They had turned it into a workshop 3 years ago. It was their safe place, their hideout, and their home away from home. Maya was 17 years old. She had learned everything about motorcycles and engines from her grandfather. He used to own this very warehouse before he died 2 years ago. He had taught her how to take apart an engine and put it back together. He showed her how to listen to the sound of a motor and know exactly what was wrong with it. Her hands were always dirty with grease, and her fingernails had black lines under them that never washed out completely. 6 other teenagers were in the warehouse with her that evening. There was Jake, who was 19 and the leader of their small crew. He had short black hair and always wore a leather jacket. Then there was Sophia, who was 18 and could ride a motorcycle faster than anyone Maya knew. Carlos was the youngest at 15. He was small and thin, with nervous energy that made him tap his fingers on everything. There was also Marcus, Devin, and Lisa. They were all between 16 and 18 years old. They called themselves a crew, but they were not a gang. They did not cause trouble or break laws. They just loved motorcycles. They loved the freedom of riding fast on empty roads. They loved the smell of gasoline and the sound of engines roaring to life. Most of all, they loved helping people in their neighborhood who could not afford to fix their bikes and cars at regular repair shops. Maya was putting away her tools when she heard the sound. It was faint at first, like a distant hum. Then it got louder and louder. It was the sound of sirens. Multiple sirens. Her heart started beating faster. She walked to one of the broken windows and looked outside. Her stomach dropped. There were police cars everywhere. She counted them quickly. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. 8 police cruisers were pulling up around the warehouse. Their red and blue lights flashed in the growing darkness. The cars formed a circle around the building, blocking every exit. "Guys!" Maya called out, her voice shaking. "We have a problem." Jake rushed to the window. Sophia and the others followed. They all stared at the police cars in shock and fear. Nobody spoke for a moment. The only sound was their breathing and the distant noise of police radios crackling. "What do they want?" Carlos asked, his voice high and scared. "We did not do anything wrong." Maya's mind raced. They had not done anything illegal. They fixed motorcycles. They helped their neighbors. Why would the police surround them like this? Like they were dangerous criminals? Then she remembered something. 2 weeks ago, someone had stolen 3 motorcycles from a dealer across town. The news had been full of stories about it. The stolen bikes were expensive racing motorcycles worth thousands of dollars each. The police had been looking for the thieves everywhere. 3 days ago, someone had left motorcycles outside their warehouse in the middle of the night. Maya and Jake had found them in the morning. The bikes were covered with a tarp. There was no note, no explanation. The bikes looked new and expensive. Jake had wanted to call the police right away, but Marcus said they should check the bikes first to see if they could find the owner's information. That was a mistake, a big mistake. Maya realized now that someone had set them up. Someone had planted those stolen motorcycles at their warehouse to make them look like thieves. But who would do that and why? A loud voice suddenly boomed through the air. It came from a megaphone. "This is Detective Chen of the Metro Police Department. We have the building surrounded. We know you are inside. You are suspected of stealing motorcycles and operating an illegal chop shop. You have 30 minutes to come out with your hands up. If you do not surrender, we will enter by force." Jake's face went pale. Sophia grabbed Marcus's arm. Carlos looked like he might cry. Lisa sat down on the floor and put her head in her hands. Devin just stared at the police cars with his mouth open. "We are not thieves," Sophia said angrily. "This is crazy. We have to go out there and explain." "They will not listen," Jake said quietly. "They think we stole those bikes. They think we are criminals." Maya looked around the warehouse. She looked at the tools hanging on the walls. She looked at the motorcycles they were fixing for people in the neighborhood. She looked at her friends, her crew, her family. They were good kids. They worked hard. They helped people. They did not deserve this. We need to think, Maya said, trying to keep her voice calm. We have 30 minutes. We need a plan. A plan for what? Devin asked. We are surrounded. There are 8 police cars out there. What can we do? Maya walked away from the window. She started pacing back and forth. Her grandfather had always told her that every problem had a solution. You just had to think clearly and not panic. She tried to remember everything her grandfather had taught her. Not just about engines and motorcycles, but about life. The warehouse suddenly felt very small. The walls seemed to close in around them. Through the broken windows, they could hear police officers talking on their radios. They could hear car doors opening and closing. They could hear footsteps on the gravel outside. 29 minutes left. Maya looked at Jake. He was the leader, but right now he looked lost. He looked at her with desperate, scared eyes. In that moment, she realized something. Jake was looking to her for answers. They were all looking to her. She was the one who knew this building better than anyone. She was the one who had spent countless hours here with her grandfather, learning every corner, every room, every secret this old warehouse held. If anyone could find a way out of this mess, it was her. Maya took a deep breath. Her hand stopped shaking. Her mind cleared. She started to think like a mechanic. When an engine was broken, you did not panic. You found the problem and you fixed it. This situation was just another problem that needed fixing. Listen to me, Maya said, gathering everyone in a circle. I might know a way out. But we need to work together and we need to work fast. Do you trust me? They all nodded. Even Jake nodded. Good, Maya said. Then here is what we are going to do. Maya's mind worked fast. She thought about every corner of the warehouse. She thought about every room, every door, every window. The police had blocked all the normal exits. They were watching the front door, the back door, and the loading dock. There was no way to walk out of the building without being seen and arrested. But Maya remembered something her grandfather had shown her years ago. She was 12 years old then. Her grandfather had taken her hand and led her to the back corner of the warehouse. He had moved some old boxes and revealed a metal hatch in the floor. This is important, Maya, her grandfather had said. This hatch leads down to the old storm drain system. It goes under the street and connects to the city's tunnel system. I used to use it for maintenance work when I first bought this building. Maya had looked down into the dark hole. She had been scared. Her grandfather had smiled and told her not to worry. He explained that the tunnels were safe. They were built strong. The city had used them for decades to manage rainwater and access underground pipes. Why are you showing me this? Young Maya had asked. Her grandfather had looked at her seriously. Because one day you might need to know all the secrets of this place. Knowledge is power, Maya. Remember that. Now 6 years later, Maya understood why her grandfather had shown her that hatch. He had been preparing her for a moment like this. Follow me, Maya told the crew. She walked quickly to the back corner of the warehouse. Jake, Sophia, Carlos, Marcus, Devin, and Lisa followed her. They moved between motorcycles and past shelves filled with tools and spare parts. Maya reached the corner where old boxes were stacked. She started pushing them aside. The boxes were heavy and dusty. Sophia jumped in to help. Together they moved the boxes and revealed the floor underneath. There it was. The metal hatch. It was round and about 3 feet wide. It looked old and rusty. Maya's heart sank a little. The hatch had a problem. It was welded shut. What is that? Jake asked, staring at the hatch. Our way out, Maya said. There is a tunnel system under this building. It leads to the storm drains. The drains connect to a main tunnel that comes out 3 blocks from here. If we can get down there, we can escape. That is amazing, Sophia said, her eyes wide. Your grandfather showed you this? Maya nodded. She kneeled down and touched the hatch. The metal was cold under her fingers. She examined the welded seams. Someone had sealed the hatch years ago for safety reasons. It made sense. Nobody wanted kids or animals falling into the tunnels by accident. There is a problem, Maya said. The hatch is welded shut. I need to cut through it. How long will that take? Jake asked. Maya thought for a moment. With the plasma cutter, maybe 20 minutes. Maybe less if I am fast. Carlos looked at his watch. We have 27 minutes before the police come in. That is cutting it really close. Do we have a choice? Devin asked, looking around nervously. They did not have a choice. Maya knew that. If they went outside and surrendered, they would be arrested. The police would not listen to their explanations. They would be thrown in jail. It would take days, maybe weeks, to prove they were innocent. By then their lives would be ruined. The newspapers would call them thieves. Their families would be ashamed. Their future would be destroyed. No, they had to take the risk. They had to trust Maya's plan. Okay, Jake said, making the decision as the leader. We do it. What do you need from us? Maya stood up and started giving orders. Her voice was calm and clear. She sounded like her grandfather when he was teaching her about engines. Confident. In control. Sophia and Marcus, I need you to gather evidence that proves we are innocent. Get the security camera footage from our cameras. Get all the repair logs that show we were fixing legitimate bikes. Get the receipts from the parts we bought. Get everything that shows we run an honest business here. Sophia and Marcus nodded and ran off to collect the items. Devin and Lisa, I need you to pack food and water. Get the bottles from the mini fridge. Get the energy bars from my backpack. We might be in those tunnels for a while and we need supplies. Devin and Lisa hurried to gather supplies. Carlos, I need you to find all the flashlights and headlamps we have. The tunnels will be dark. We need light. Carlos nodded quickly and started searching through the tool cabinets. Jake, you are with me. I need you to help me set up the plasma cutter and watch the time. Tell me every 5 minutes how much time we have left. Jake gave her a thumbs up. Got it. Maya ran to her workstation. The plasma cutter was hanging on the wall. It was a powerful tool used for cutting through metal. Her grandfather had taught her how to use it safely. She grabbed the cutter and the fuel tank. She checked the tank. It was about 3/4 full. That should be enough. She carried the equipment back to the hatch. Jake helped her set it up. Maya connected the fuel line and turned on the power. The cutter hummed to life. She put on safety goggles and gloves. She took a deep breath. Everyone stand back, Maya said. This is going to throw sparks. The crew moved away from the hatch. Maya kneeled down and positioned the plasma cutter at the edge of the welded seam. She squeezed the trigger. A bright blue flame shot out from the cutter. It hit the metal with a hissing sound. Sparks flew in all directions like tiny fireworks. The metal started to glow orange, then red, then white. Maya slowly moved the cutter along the seam. She had to cut through the entire circle to open the hatch. The work was slow and precise. Maya had to be careful. If she cut too fast, the metal would not separate properly. If she cut too slow, they would run out of time. She focused completely on the task. Everything else disappeared. There was only Maya, the cutter, and the glowing metal. 22 minutes left, Jake called out. Maya did not respond. She kept cutting. Sweat started to drip down her face. The heat from the plasma cutter was intense. The small work area became hot. Maya's arms started to ache from holding the cutter steady. Behind her, the crew worked on their own tasks. Sophia and Marcus were putting papers and a laptop into a waterproof bag. The laptop had all their security camera footage on it. It would prove their innocence. Lisa and Devin packed bottles of water and snacks into backpacks. Carlos found 4 flashlights and 3 headlamps. He tested each one to make sure the batteries worked. Outside the warehouse, they could hear Detective Chen's voice again through the megaphone. You now have 20 minutes to surrender. This is your final warning. Come out peacefully or we will enter by force. The voice made everyone nervous. Carlos dropped a flashlight. It clattered on the concrete floor. Sophia muttered a curse word under her breath. Marcus's hand shook as he zipped up the waterproof bag, but Maya did not stop working. She could not afford to be distracted. She was about halfway through cutting the circle. The plasma cutter continued to throw sparks. The smell of burning metal filled the air. 17 minutes, Jake said. His voice was tight with stress. Maya's arms burned with exhaustion. Her back hurt from kneeling, but she kept going. She thought about her grandfather. She thought about all the times he had told her to finish what she started. A job half done is a job not done at all, he used to say. She was 3/4 of the way through the circle now. Just a little more, just a little further. Then disaster struck. The plasma cutter sputtered. The bright blue flame flickered and died. The tool went silent. Maya squeezed the trigger again. Nothing happened. She checked the fuel line. She checked the connections. Everything looked fine. Then she looked at the fuel tank gauge. Her heart sank. The tank was empty. She had run out of fuel. No, 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 Maya whispered. This could not be happening. Not now. Not when they were so close. What is wrong? Jake asked, seeing the panic on her face. The fuel tank is empty, Maya said. Her voice cracked. I cannot finish cutting the hatch. Everyone stopped what they were doing. They all stared at Maya in horror. Without the plasma cutter, they could not open the hatch. Without the hatch, they could not escape. They were trapped. 15 minutes, Jake said quietly. Maya stood up. She looked around the warehouse desperately. There had to be another way. There had to be another tool she could use. Her eyes scanned the workbenches, the shelves, the walls. Then she saw it. In the far corner, covered in dust and cobwebs, the old acetylene torch, her grandfather's original cutting torch from 30 years ago. It was slower than the plasma cutter. It was more dangerous, but it would work. I have an idea, Maya said, already running toward the corner, but we need to hurry. Maya ran to the corner where the old acetylene torch sat on a dusty shelf. She grabbed it with both hands and blew away the cobwebs. The torch was heavy and old-fashioned. It had 2 tanks connected with rubber hoses. One tank held oxygen and the other held acetylene gas. When mixed together and lit, they created an extremely hot flame that could cut through metal. Her grandfather had taught her how to use this torch when she was 14. It was more difficult than the modern plasma cutter. It required steady hands and careful control. But Maya had no choice now. It was the only tool left that could finish the job. She carried the torch back to the hatch. Her arms shook from the weight. Jake saw her struggling and helped her set it down. Maya quickly checked the tank gauges. The oxygen tank was half full. The acetylene tank had about a quarter left. It would be enough. It had to be enough. What is that? Carlos asked, his eyes wide with worry. It is an old cutting torch, Maya explained while connecting the hoses. My grandfather used it before he bought the plasma cutter. It is slower and harder to use, but it will work. How much slower? Sophia asked. Maya did not want to answer that question. The truth was, the acetylene torch would take at least 10 minutes to finish cutting through the remaining metal. Maybe longer if she was not careful, and they only had 14 minutes left before the police would break in. I will work as fast as I can, Maya said instead. She put on her safety goggles again. Her hands were shaking, so she took a moment to steady herself. She remembered what her grandfather had taught her. Fear makes your hands shake, Maya, but courage makes them steady. You have courage inside you. Just breathe and find it. Maya took 3 deep breaths. Her hands stopped shaking. She opened the valves on both tanks. She could hear the gas hissing through the lines. She picked up the striker, a tool used to create a spark. She held it near the torch tip and squeezed. Click, click, click. A spark jumped. The torch ignited with a soft whoosh. A bright orange flame appeared. Maya adjusted the valves, adding more oxygen to the mix. The flame changed color. It turned blue and white at the center. It was ready. Stand back, Maya warned. She kneeled beside the hatch and positioned the torch where the plasma cutter had stopped. The flame touched the metal with a loud hissing sound. The metal began to glow red. Outside, Detective Chen's voice came through the megaphone again. 13 minutes remaining. I repeat, 13 minutes. After that, we are coming in. Maya blocked out the voice. She focused only on the flame and the metal. She had to move slowly and carefully with the acetylene torch. If she moved too fast, the cut would be uneven. If she moved too slow, they would run out of time. She had to find the perfect speed. Sweat poured down her face. The safety goggles started to fog up. The heat from the torch was even more intense than the plasma cutter. Maya's arms ached. Her back hurt. Her knees were sore from kneeling on the hard concrete floor, but she did not stop. Behind her, the crew finished their preparations. Sophia had packed all their evidence into 2 waterproof bags. Marcus double-checked to make sure they had everything. Devin and Lisa had filled 3 backpacks with water bottles, energy bars, and first aid supplies. Carlos had organized all the flashlights and headlamps. He gave 1 headlamp to each person and kept 2 flashlights as extras. 10 minutes left, Jake announced. His voice was tight with stress. He stood next to Maya, watching her work. He wanted to help, but there was nothing he could do. This job required skill that only Maya had. The crew started to get nervous. They paced back and forth. They whispered to each other. Carlos chewed his fingernails.
Sophia kept checking her phone, though there was no one she could call for help.
Devin started tapping his foot rapidly, making a constant noise on the floor. Everyone, please be quiet, Jake said firmly. Maya needs to concentrate. The crew fell silent. The only sounds were the hissing of the torch and the distant noise of police radios outside. Maya continued cutting. She was making progress. The circle was almost complete. Just a little more. Just a few more inches. The torch suddenly flickered. Maya's heart skipped a beat. She looked at the acetylene tank gauge. The needle was very close to empty.
She had used almost all the gas.
She needed just a few more minutes of fuel. Just a few more minutes. Please, 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 Maya whispered to herself. She moved the torch a tiny bit faster, trying to finish before the gas ran out. But she could not rush too much. If the cut was not clean, the hatch might not open properly. 8 minutes, Jake said. They could hear the police officers getting ready outside. Car doors slammed. Footsteps moved closer to the building. Voices called out orders. The police were preparing to enter. They were getting into position. Maya's hands cramped from holding the torch steady for so long. Pain shot up her arms. But she could not stop, not now. Not when they were so close. She was almost done. Just 2 more inches. Just 1 more inch. The flame flickered again. This time it was more serious. The acetylene was running out. Maya worked faster. The torch hissed and sputtered. The flame grew smaller. Maya's heart pounded in her chest. Come on, she muttered. And then finally the cut was complete. Maya had gone all the way around the circle. The welded seam was broken. The hatch was free. The torch flame died at the exact same moment. The acetylene tank was completely empty. Maya dropped the torch and pulled off her goggles. Her face was red and covered in sweat. Her arms shook with exhaustion. But she had done it. She had opened the hatch. It is done, Maya gasped. Help me lift it. Jake and Marcus rushed forward. They grabbed the edge of the hatch and pulled. The metal was heavy. They pulled harder. The hatch began to move. It lifted up with a loud grinding noise. Rusty hinges squeaked. The hatch opened, revealing a dark hole in the floor. Cool air rushed up from below. It smelled damp and old, like wet concrete and earth. Maya clicked on her headlamp and shined the light down into the hole. She could see a metal ladder attached to the wall. It went straight down about 15 feet. At the bottom was a concrete tunnel. 6 minutes, Jake said, looking at his watch. We need to go now, Maya said. She grabbed one of the waterproof bags. I will go first. Follow me one at a time. Carlos, you come last and close the hatch behind you. Try to make it look like it is still sealed. How do I do that? Carlos asked nervously. Just pull it shut and push some dirt and dust over the edges, Maya explained. If we are lucky, the police will not notice it has been opened. They will think we escaped some other way. Maya did not wait for more questions. She sat on the edge of the hatch and swung her legs into the hole. Her feet found the first rung of the ladder. She began climbing down. The metal rungs were cold and slightly wet. They felt slippery under her hands. As Maya climbed down, her headlamp illuminated the tunnel below. It was bigger than she remembered. The tunnel was about 6 feet tall and 4 feet wide. The walls were made of concrete, stained with years of water and rust. The floor was covered with a thin layer of water and mud. Maya reached the bottom and stepped into the tunnel. The water was cold. It soaked through her shoes immediately. She moved aside to make room for the others. Sophia came down next, then Marcus, then Devin, then Lisa. Each person climbed down carefully. Their headlamps bobbed in the darkness. When they reached the bottom, they stayed close together. Nobody wanted to wander off into the dark tunnel alone. Jake came down second to last. He was carrying the other waterproof bag with their evidence. His face was serious and focused. He was thinking about what would happen next. Finally, Carlos started climbing down. He was the youngest and the most scared. His hand shook on the ladder rungs. Above him, they could hear loud noises. The police were breaking through the warehouse door. There were shouts and the sound of boots running on concrete. Hurry, Carlos! Sophia called up urgently. Carlos moved faster. When he was halfway down the ladder, he reached up and grabbed the hatch. He pulled it down with all his strength. The hatch closed with a heavy thud. The tunnel went completely dark except for their headlamps. They heard muffled sounds from above. The police were inside the warehouse now. They were searching the building. They were looking for 7 teenagers who had suddenly disappeared. Did they see you close the hatch? Jake whispered to Carlos. I do not think so. Carlos whispered back. He was shaking. I closed it fast. They all stood in the tunnel, breathing hard. They listened to the sounds above them. Footsteps ran back and forth across the warehouse floor. Voices shouted. Someone kicked over a tool cabinet. Metal tools crashed to the ground. Where are they? A voice yelled. It sounded like Detective Chen. Search every room. Check behind every box. The crew stayed perfectly still. They did not make a sound. Water dripped somewhere in the tunnel. It echoed softly. Maya put her finger to her lips, signaling everyone to stay quiet. They waited. 1 minute passed. Then 2 minutes. Then 3. The sounds above them began to fade. The police were moving to other parts of the warehouse. They were searching the offices and storage rooms. I think we are safe, Jake whispered. They do not know about the tunnel. We need to move, Maya said quietly. We need to get as far away from here as possible. Follow me and stay together. Do not fall behind. Maya turned and pointed her headlamp down the tunnel. The tunnel was darker than Maya remembered. The headlamps created small circles of light that bounced off the wet concrete walls. Beyond the light was complete blackness. The kind of darkness that made you feel like the walls were closing in even when they were not. Maya led the way. Her shoes splashed through shallow water that covered the tunnel floor. The water was cold and dirty. It smelled like rust and old pipes. Behind her, she could hear the others following. Their breathing echoed in the enclosed space. The tunnel was narrow. It was just wide enough for one person to walk comfortably. Sometimes the ceiling got lower, and the taller members of the crew had to duck their heads. Jake was 6 feet tall, and he had to walk with his head bent forward. His neck was already starting to hurt. How far do we have to go? Sophia asked. Her voice sounded strange in the tunnel. It echoed weirdly, making it hard to tell how far away she was. I am not sure, Maya admitted. My grandfather said these tunnels connect to the main storm drain system. That system leads to an exit about 3 blocks away, but I do not know the exact distance underground. 3 blocks could be a quarter mile, Marcus calculated. Maybe more. Nobody responded. A quarter mile did not sound like much when you were walking on the street. But in a dark, narrow tunnel underground, it felt like a very long way. They walked in silence for a while. The only sounds were their footsteps splashing in the water and the constant drip, drip, drip of water falling from the ceiling. Sometimes the tunnel curved slightly to the left or right. Other times it went straight for long stretches. After about 5 minutes of walking, they reached a place where 2 tunnels met. Maya stopped and shined her headlamp down each tunnel. They both looked the same. Dark, wet, and endless. Which way? Jake asked. Maya tried to remember what her grandfather had told her. She closed her eyes and thought hard. He had said something about following the water flow. Storm drains were designed to move rainwater away from buildings and toward the main drainage system. If you followed the direction of the water flow, you would eventually reach the main drain. Maya looked down at the water on the tunnel floor. It was hard to tell, but the water seemed to be flowing slightly toward the left tunnel. It was barely noticeable, just a tiny current, but it was there. Left, Maya said with confidence she did not quite feel. We go left, they continued walking. The tunnel started to slope downward. They were going deeper underground. The air felt heavier. It was harder to breathe. The smell got stronger. It was a mix of dampness, mold, and something else that Maya could not identify. I do not like this, Carlos said from the back of the line. His voice was shaky. It feels like we are being buried alive. Do not think about it, Lisa told him. Just keep walking. Focus on the person in front of you. But Carlos was having trouble not thinking about it. He was a naturally anxious person. Small spaces made him uncomfortable. Dark places scared him. And right now, he was in a small dark place deep underground with tons of earth and concrete above his head. His breathing started to get faster. They walked for another 10 minutes. Maya was starting to worry. They should have reached the main storm drain by now. Maybe she had chosen the wrong tunnel at the split. Maybe they were going in the wrong direction. Maybe they were getting more lost with every step. Just as Maya was about to suggest they turn back, the tunnel opened up. They emerged into a much larger space. It was the main storm drain. The tunnel here was about 12 feet wide and 10 feet tall. It was big enough to drive a small car through. Thank God, Sophia breathed. She stood up straight and stretched her back. It felt good to be in a space where she did not have to hunch over. The main drain was different from the small tunnel. There was more water here. It flowed steadily down the center of the tunnel, creating a small stream. On both sides of the stream were narrow walkways. The walkways were made of concrete and were raised about a foot above the water level. Maya stepped onto the walkway and looked both directions. To their left, the tunnel disappeared into darkness. To their right, the tunnel curved and seemed to go upward slightly. That had to be the way out. Storm drains went upward as they got closer to the surface. This way, Maya said, turning right. They walked along the walkway in single file. The stream beside them made a constant rushing sound. It was actually kind of peaceful in a strange way. At least they were making progress. At least they were moving toward freedom. They had been walking for about 2 minutes when Carlos stopped. Everyone else kept walking, not noticing. Carlos stood still on the walkway. His headlamp beam was pointed at the ground. His whole body was rigid. Devin, who was walking in front of Carlos, suddenly realized the sound of footsteps behind him had stopped. He turned around. "Carlos? What is wrong?" Carlos did not answer. He just stood there, frozen. His breathing had become very fast, too fast. He was hyperventilating. "Hey, everyone stop," Devin called out. "Something is wrong with Carlos." The whole group stopped and turned around. Maya quickly walked back to where Carlos was standing. She shined her headlamp on his face. His eyes were wide and unfocused. His skin was pale. Sweat poured down his face even though the tunnel was cool. "Carlos, can you hear me?" Maya asked gently. Carlos nodded, but he did not speak. He seemed unable to move. His hands were pressed flat against the tunnel wall as if he was trying to hold himself up. "He is having a panic attack," Sophia said. She had seen this before. Her younger brother had anxiety, and he sometimes had panic attacks when he got too stressed. Maya understood immediately. Carlos was 15 years old. He was underground in a dark tunnel. The police were after them. The pressure and fear had finally become too much for him. His body had gone into panic mode. "Carlos, listen to my voice," Maya said calmly. She stood directly in front of him, making sure he could see her face in the light. "You are okay. You are safe. We are going to get out of here." Carlos tried to speak but could not. His breathing was coming in short, rapid gasps. He sounded like he could not get enough air. "You need to slow down your breathing," Maya instructed. "Breathe with me. In through your nose, out through your mouth. Watch me." Maya took a slow, deep breath through her nose. She held it for a second, then let it out slowly through her mouth. She did it again, and again. She kept her eyes locked on Carlos's eyes. "Do it with me," Maya said. "In through your nose, hold it. Out through your mouth," Carlos tried. His first attempt was shaky and fast, but Maya kept going, showing him the rhythm. After a few tries, Carlos started to match her breathing. Slowly, very slowly, his breathing began to normalize. The rest of the crew watched in silence. They felt helpless. They wanted to help, but they did not know how. This was something only Carlos could work through with Maya's guidance. "That is good, Carlos," Maya encouraged. "Keep breathing with me. You are doing great." While she helped Carlos breathe, Maya's mind went back to a similar moment in her own life. She was 13 years old. She and her grandfather were working on a car engine together. He had asked her to climb underneath the car to check something. But when she got under there, the car suddenly felt very heavy above her. She felt trapped. She could not breathe. She had panicked. Her grandfather had helped her out from under the car. Then he taught her the breathing exercise. He explained that panic attacks were scary, but they were not dangerous. They always passed. The key was to slow down your breathing and remind yourself that you were safe. "My grandfather taught me this," Maya told Carlos softly. He had panic attacks too when he was young. He was in the war, and sometimes the memories would come back and he would feel like he could not breathe. But he learned how to manage it. And you can too. Carlos's breathing was almost normal now. Some color had returned to his face. He blinked a few times and seemed to come back to himself. "I am sorry," Carlos whispered. His voice was hoarse. "I did not mean to freak out. It is so dark down here, and so small. And I kept thinking about all the weight above us, all that earth and concrete, and what if the tunnel collapsed, and what if—" "Stop," Maya said gently but firmly. "Do not follow those thoughts. They are not helpful. Here is what you are going to do. You are going to focus on the back of Devin's jacket. That is all. Just watch Devin's back and follow him. Do not think about anything else. Can you do that?" Carlos took a shaky breath and nodded. "I can try." "Good," Maya said. She squeezed his shoulder. "We are almost out of here. I promise." Maya was not actually sure they were almost out, but Carlos needed hope right now. They all did. "Is everyone ready to keep moving?" Jake asked. They all said yes, even Carlos. But Maya could tell Carlos was still scared. His hands were shaking. She made a decision. "Devin, switch places with me," Maya said. "I'm going to walk behind Carlos. Carlos, I will be right behind you the whole time. If you start to feel panicked again, just stop and I will help you. Okay?" Carlos looked relieved. Okay, they rearranged their order. Maya walked directly behind Carlos now. Devin moved up to lead the group. They started walking again. The tunnel continued to slope upward. That was a good sign. They were definitely moving toward the surface. Maya kept her eyes on Carlos. She could tell he was struggling, but he was pushing through his fear. She was proud of him. They walked for another 15 minutes. The tunnel curved and twisted. Sometimes they had to climb over small piles of debris. Rocks and old bricks were scattered on the walkway. Once they had to squeeze past a section where part of the ceiling had cracked and buckled downward. Finally they saw it. Light. Real light. Not the artificial light from their headlamps, but natural light filtering down from above. They had reached the exit. The storm drain ended at a large metal grate. Beyond the grate they could see a concrete channel that was open to the sky. Evening light poured through the bars of the grate. It was the most beautiful thing they had ever seen. They had made it. They had escaped. They were safe. For now. Jake pushed against the metal grate with both hands. It did not move. He pushed harder, putting his shoulder against it. The grate was old and rusty, but it was also locked from the outside with a heavy padlock. "It is locked," Jake said, frustration clear in his voice. After everything they had been through, they were stuck at the final barrier. "Let me try something," Maya said. She examined the grate carefully with her headlamp. The bars were thick metal, but the frame holding the grate was old. Very old. The concrete around the frame had cracked with age. Water damage and time had weakened it. Maya reached into her pocket and pulled out a small screwdriver. She always carried basic tools with her. It was a habit her grandfather had taught her. She wedged the screwdriver into the crack between the grate frame and the concrete. "Everyone push on the grate at the same time," Maya instructed. "When I count to 3. Ready? 1, 2, 3. They all pushed together. Maya levered the screwdriver. There was a loud cracking sound. The old concrete crumbled. The frame shifted. They pushed again, harder this time. More concrete broke away. The grate suddenly swung outward, still locked but now free from its concrete mounting. They squeezed through the opening one by one. They emerged into a concrete drainage channel. The channel was about 10 feet deep and 20 feet wide. Steep walls rose on both sides. At the top of the walls, they could see the edge of a street and the evening sky. They climbed the metal ladder built into the wall of the channel. When Maya reached the top, she looked around to figure out where they were. They were in an industrial area on the east side of town. Old warehouses and storage facilities surrounded them. There were very few people around. They were exactly 3 blocks from their workshop, just like her grandfather had said. But they were safe. The police were still searching their building, not knowing the teenagers had escaped through the tunnels. The crew climbed out onto the street. They were covered in dirt and mud from the tunnel. Their clothes were wet and filthy. They looked like they had been digging through a mine. But they were free. "We did it," Sophia said, disbelief in her voice. "We actually did it." Carlos sat down on the curb and put his head in his hands. He was shaking, but not from panic this time. It was relief. "Pure relief. Now what?" Devin asked. "We cannot just go home. The police will be looking for us." He was right. They had escaped the immediate danger, but they were still wanted by the police. Their faces would probably be on the news soon. They were running from the law. That made them fugitives. "We need to prove we are innocent," Lisa said. "We have the evidence. We have the security camera footage. We have all our repair records. We just need someone to listen to us." "But who will listen?" Marcus asked. "If we go to the police station now, they will arrest us immediately. They will not give us a chance to explain." Jake stood apart from the group, thinking hard. As the leader, the final decision would be his. They all looked to him, waiting to see what he would say. Maya watched Jake. She could see him struggling with the decision. If they ran, they would be fugitives forever. They would have to hide, change their names, leave town. Their families would suffer. Their futures would be destroyed. But if they turned themselves in without a plan, they might be locked up before anyone looked at their evidence. The justice system did not always work the way it should. Sometimes innocent people went to jail while the real criminals walked free. Maya thought about her grandfather again. He had always told her to be brave but not stupid. Courage meant doing the right thing even when it was hard. But wisdom meant doing it in a smart way. An idea formed in Maya's mind. It was risky. It might not work. but it was better than running or surrendering blindly. I have an idea, Maya said. Everyone turned to look at her. What if we call Detective Chen directly? Are you crazy? Sophia said. He is the one who surrounded our workshop. He thinks we are criminals. Exactly, Maya said. He's in charge of the case. If we can convince him that we are innocent, he has the power to call off the search. But we need to do it carefully. We need protection. What kind of protection? Jake asked, interested in her idea. We call him and offer to meet at the police station voluntarily, Maya explained. But we make 3 conditions. First, we bring a lawyer. Second, we bring a journalist or news reporter as a witness. Third, we present our evidence before we are arrested. If the evidence proves we are innocent, they drop the charges. If it does not, we surrender peacefully. Jake thought about this. It was a bold plan. Most people running from the police would not call the detective chasing them. But that was exactly why it might work. It would show they had nothing to hide. Where do we get a lawyer? Marcus asked. My cousin is in law school, Sophia said. She is not a real lawyer yet, but she might know someone who can help us. And I know a reporter, Lisa added. My neighbor works for the city newspaper. She writes about local crime stories. If we can get her to come, she will make sure the police treat us fairly. This is insane, Devin said, but he was smiling a little. But it might actually work. Maya pulled out her phone. It was dirty and the screen was cracked from being in the tunnel, but it still worked. She looked at Jake. Should I call him? Jake took a deep breath. He looked at each member of the crew. They were tired, dirty, and scared, but they were also innocent. They deserved to prove it. Make the call, Jake said. Maya found Detective Chen's number online. The police department's main number was listed on the city website. She dialed it and asked for Detective Chen. Her hands were shaking as she held the phone. This is Detective Chen, a gruff voice answered. Detective Chen, this is Maya Torres, she said. Her voice was steadier than she felt. I am one of the teenagers you were looking for at the warehouse on Riverside. There was silence on the other end. Then, where are you? How did you get out of the building? That is not important right now, Maya said. What is important is that we are innocent. We did not steal those motorcycles. We were set up. We have evidence that proves it, and we want to show it to you. You need to turn yourselves in immediately, Detective Chen said firmly. We will, Maya said, but on our terms. We want to meet you at the police station. We will bring a lawyer and a journalist as witnesses. You can look at our evidence. If it proves we are guilty, we will surrender peacefully. If it proves we are innocent, you drop the charges, deal? That is not how this works, the detective said. You are suspects in a crime. You ran from the police. That makes things worse for you. We did not run, Maya corrected him. We escaped from a situation where we would not have been given a fair chance to prove our innocence. Now we are offering to come in voluntarily and present our case. Is not that what you want? To know the truth? There was another long silence. Maya could hear the detective breathing heavily on the other end of the line. This is highly irregular, Detective Chen finally said. I know, Maya admitted, but we are not criminals, detective. We are just kids who love motorcycles and help people in our neighborhood. Someone planted stolen bikes at our workshop to frame us. We can prove it. Please just look at our evidence. More silence. Maya held her breath. The entire crew watched her, waiting to hear what the detective would say. Fine, Detective Chen said at last. You have 2 hours to get to the police station with your lawyer and your witness. When you arrive, you will go through proper booking procedures. Then and only then will I look at your evidence. If I find out you are wasting my time or if this is some kind of trick, I will throw the book at you. Understood? Understood, Maya said. Thank you, detective. Do not thank me yet, he said. And Maya, do not run. If you run, I will find you. And when I do, there will be no deals. No second chances. We will not run, Maya promised. We will be there in 2 hours. She hung up the phone. Everyone stared at her in amazement. He agreed? Sophia asked in disbelief. He agreed, Maya confirmed. She felt like she might throw up from the adrenaline rushing through her body, but she forced herself to stay calm. Now we need to make the other calls. Sophia, call your cousin about a lawyer. Lisa, call your neighbor reporter. We have 2 hours to get everything ready. The crew sprang into action. Sophia called her cousin, who said she would contact a criminal defense lawyer she knew. Lisa called her neighbor, who was excited about the story and agreed to meet them at the police station. Jake, Marcus, and Devin checked through the waterproof bags to make sure all their evidence was organized and ready to present. Maya sat down on the curb next to Carlos. She was exhausted. Her arms hurt from cutting through the hatch. Her legs hurt from walking through the tunnels. Her whole body felt like it weighed 1,000 pounds. "Are you scared?" Carlos asked her quietly. "Terrified," Maya admitted. "But my grandfather used to say that being brave does not mean you are not scared. It means you do the right thing even when you are scared." "Your grandfather sounds like he was a really good person," Carlos said. "He was," Maya agreed. A tear rolled down her dirty cheek. "I wish he was here now." "I think he would be proud of you," Carlos said. "You saved all of us today. You got us out of that warehouse. You got us through the tunnels. And now you are making sure we get justice." "That is pretty amazing," Maya managed a small smile. "We are not safe yet. We still have to convince the police we are innocent." "We will," Carlos said with surprising confidence.
We have the truth on our side.
"That has to count for something." 90 minutes later, they were in an Uber van heading toward the police station. Sophia's cousin had found them a lawyer named Mr. Patterson. He was a middle-aged man with kind eyes and a calm manner. Lisa's neighbor, a reporter named Ms. Kim, rode with them in her own car. She had brought a camera and a voice recorder. As they pulled up to the police station, Maya saw news crews already setting up outside. Word had gotten out that the runaway teenagers were turning themselves in. Cameras and microphones were everywhere. "Remember," Mr. Patterson told them, "do not talk to the reporters. Do not answer any questions. Just walk straight inside with your heads up. You have nothing to be ashamed of." They got out of the van. Camera flashes exploded around them. Reporters shouted questions.
Did you steal the motorcycles? Why did you run?
"Where have you been?" Maya kept her head up and walked toward the entrance. Jake, Sophia, Carlos, Marcus, Devin, and Lisa followed her. They looked dirty and tired, but they walked with dignity. Mr. Patterson and Ms. Kim walked beside them, shielding them from the worst of the crowd. Detective Chen met them at the entrance. He looked surprised to see them actually show up. He also looked tired. He had probably been searching for them for hours. "You came," he said simply. "We said we would," Maya replied. Detective Chen nodded. "Follow me." Detective Chen led them through the busy police station. Officers stopped what they were doing to stare at the 7 teenagers walking past. Some officers looked angry. Others looked curious. Everyone had heard about the teens who escaped from a surrounded building. They went to a large conference room on the 2nd floor. The room had a long table with chairs around it. There were windows on one side that looked out over the city. The evening sun was setting, painting the sky orange and pink. "Sit down," Detective Chen said. He was not rude, but he was not friendly either. He was all business. Mr. Patterson, the lawyer, sat at the head of the table. The 7 teenagers sat along one side. Detective Chen sat across from them. Ms. Kim, the reporter, set up her camera in the corner of the room. She also put her voice recorder on the table. "This is being recorded," Ms. Kim said clearly. "Today is the 6th of November. We are at Metro Police Station. Present are Detective Chen, Attorney David Patterson, 7 juveniles, and myself, reporter Sarah Kim." Detective Chen did not look happy about being recorded, but he did not object. He turned his attention to the teenagers. "Before we look at any evidence," the detective said, "I need to ask you all some questions. You have the right to remain silent. You have the right to an attorney. Anything you say can be used against you in court." He read them their full Miranda rights. Mr. Patterson made sure each teenager understood their rights. Then the questioning began. "Let me start with the basics," Detective Chen said. "Maya Torres, you and your friends were using the warehouse on Riverside Avenue. Is that correct?" "Yes, sir," Maya answered. Mr. Patterson had told her to be polite and honest. "My grandfather used to own that warehouse. He left it to my mother when he died. We use it as a workshop to fix motorcycles and cars." "Fixing stolen motorcycles?" the detective asked. "No," Maya said firmly. "Fixing motorcycles for people in our neighborhood who cannot afford expensive repair shops. We charge very little money. Sometimes we do not charge anything at all if the person is having financial problems." Detective Chen wrote something in his notebook. 3 stolen motorcycles were found at your location. Expensive racing bikes worth over $30,000 total. How do you explain that? "We cannot explain how they got there," Jake spoke up. 3 days ago, we found them outside the warehouse in the morning. They were covered with a tarp. We did not know where they came from." "And you did not report this to the police?" The detective asked, his eyebrow raised. We should have, Jake admitted. That was our mistake. We wanted to check the bikes first to see if we could find the owner's information. We thought maybe someone needed help and left them there for us to fix. But we never got the chance to do a full investigation. You showed up before we could figure out what was going on. Convenient story, Detective Chen said, but he did not sound completely convinced it was a lie. He sounded like he was still deciding. Detective, Mr. Patterson interrupted. My clients have evidence they would like to present. I believe it will answer your questions. Maya reached down and pulled up the waterproof bag. She carefully took out the laptop. The laptop was old and the screen was cracked, but it still worked. She opened it and turned it on. Our warehouse has security cameras, Maya explained. We installed them 6 months ago because we wanted to protect the motorcycles we were working on. These cameras record everything that happens outside the building. She pulled up a video file and turned the laptop so Detective Chen could see the screen. Ms. Kim moved her camera to record the laptop screen as, well, the video showed the front of the warehouse at night. The timestamp said it was 2:30 in the morning, 3 days ago. For a few minutes, nothing happened. Then a white van pulled up. 2 men got out. They were wearing ski masks and dark clothes. They opened the back of the van and pulled out a motorcycle. They pushed it toward the warehouse entrance. They did this 3 times, bringing out 3 motorcycles. Then they covered the bikes with a tarp and drove away. The video was clear. It showed everything. It proved that Maya and her crew had not stolen the motorcycles. Someone else had planted them at the warehouse. Detective Chen watched the video carefully. He did not say anything. His face was hard to read. We have more, Sophia said. She pulled out a folder full of papers. These are our repair logs. Every motorcycle and car we work on, we write down the owner's name, the vehicle identification number, and what repairs we did. We also write down how much we charged. You can see that we only work on legitimate vehicles. We have never had a stolen vehicle in our shop before those 3 bikes appeared. Marcus added another folder. These are receipts for parts we bought. We buy parts from local auto shops. Everything is legal and documented. Lisa pulled out her phone. We also have text messages. About a week ago, I got a weird message from someone I did not know. They said our crew was getting too popular, and we were taking business away from someone. I thought it was just spam, so I ignored it. But now I think it was a threat. She showed her phone to Detective Chen. The message said, "You guys need to stop what you are doing. You are taking money out of my pocket. There will be consequences." Detective Chen took Lisa's phone and looked at the message carefully. "Did you respond to this?" "No," Lisa said. "I did not know who sent it. I thought it was just someone being mean online." "I can trace this number," Detective Chen said. He wrote down the phone number from the message. Mr. Patterson leaned forward. "Detective, I think it is clear that my clients are victims, not criminals. Someone deliberately framed them. Someone wanted them to be arrested. The question is who would do that and why?" Maya had been thinking about this question since they escaped from the warehouse. Who would want to frame them? Who would benefit from shutting down their workshop? "There is another repair crew on the east side of town," Maya said slowly. "They call themselves the Steel Kings. They run a shop that fixes motorcycles, but they charge very high prices. A lot of people in our neighborhood started coming to us instead because we are cheaper, and we do good work. The Steel Kings probably lost a lot of customers because of us." "Do you have any proof the Steel Kings are involved?" Detective Chen asked. "No direct proof," Jake admitted. "But about a month ago, their leader, a guy named Rick Torres, came to our warehouse. He said we needed to stop working or there would be trouble. We thought he was just trying to scare us. We did not take him seriously." Detective Chen wrote down the name Rick Torres. "I will look into this." He stood up and left the room, taking the laptop and the folders with him. Mr. Patterson told the teenagers to stay quiet and wait. They sat in silence. The only sound was the tick-tock of the clock on the wall. 30 minutes passed. Then an hour. The teenagers were getting nervous. What was happening? Had Detective Chen believed them? Or was he gathering evidence to charge them with crimes? Finally, the door opened. Detective Chen walked in. Behind him was another detective and a police captain. The captain was a tall woman with gray hair and a stern face. "I am Captain Rodriguez," the woman said. "I oversee this department. Detective Chen has briefed me on your situation. I have also personally reviewed your evidence." The teenagers held their breath. This was it. This was the moment when they would find out if they would go to jail or go home. We traced the phone number from the threatening message, Captain Rodriguez continued. It belongs to a man named Rick Torres. We also looked into the Steel King's repair crew. They have been under investigation for several months for dealing in stolen motorcycles. We just did not have enough evidence to make arrests. Until now, Maya's heart started to beat faster. Was this good news? Your security camera footage is excellent evidence, the captain said. We can clearly see 2 men stealing motorcycles and planting them at your location. We compared the body types and movements of the men in your video to known members of the Steel Kings. We believe we have identified the 2 suspects. Does that mean we are not in trouble? Carlos asked quietly. Captain Rodriguez looked at the 7 teenagers. You are not being charged with stealing motorcycles. The evidence clearly shows you were framed. However, you did make some mistakes. You should have reported the abandoned motorcycles immediately. You also should not have run from the police, even though I understand you were scared. We are sorry, Maya said. We made bad choices. We were just afraid nobody would believe us. I understand that, the captain said. Her face softened a little. But running from the police made things much worse. You are all lucky that no one was hurt during your escape. If someone had been injured in that tunnel system, you could have faced serious charges, Mr. Patterson spoke up. Captain, my clients are minors. They made mistakes, yes, but they also showed remarkable courage in coming here voluntarily with evidence. I would ask that you consider their cooperation when deciding how to proceed. Captain Rodriguez nodded. I have already considered that. Here is what is going to happen. All charges related to the stolen motorcycles are being dropped. You are free to go. However, each of you will need to complete 50 hours of community service for failing to report the abandoned motorcycles and for evading police. You will also be required to attend a class on civic responsibility and understanding the legal system. That is it? Sophia asked in disbelief. We are not going to jail? You are not going to jail, the captain confirmed. But you're getting a second chance. Do not waste it. The teenagers could not believe it. They were free. They were truly free. Some of them started crying with relief. Carlos hugged Marcus. Lisa and Sophia held hands. Jake put his head down on the table and just breathed deeply. Maya felt like a huge weight had been lifted off her chest. She had saved her crew. She had proven they were innocent. Her grandfather would have been proud. There is one more thing, Detective Chen said. He actually smiled a little bit. It was the first time they had seen him smile. About an hour ago, we raided the Steel King's workshop. We found 3 more stolen motorcycles, tools used to strip bikes for parts, and evidence of many other crimes. Rick Torres and 4 of his crew members are now in custody. They will be charged with theft, fraud, and conspiracy. You kids basically helped us crack a case we have been working on for 6 months. Ms. Kim, the reporter, had been recording everything. She was smiling. This was going to be a great story. Not a story about criminal teenagers, but a story about innocent kids who stood up for themselves and helped catch real criminals. The next few days were crazy. The story was everywhere. Newspapers, television news, social media. Everyone was talking about the teenage mechanics who were framed by a criminal gang and then helped the police catch the real thieves. Maya and her crew became local heroes. People from all over the city reached out to them. Some wanted to donate tools and supplies to their workshop. Others wanted to hire them to fix vehicles. Their little repair crew became famous. A week after the incident, Maya got a phone call from a man named Robert Chen. He was a retired mechanic who owned a large repair shop in the downtown area. He had seen the news stories and was impressed by the teenagers' skills and character. I am getting too old to run my shop alone, Mr. Chen told Maya on the phone. I have been looking for someone to eventually take over the business. Would you be interested in an apprenticeship? You and your crew could work in a real legal shop with proper tools and equipment. I would teach you everything I know. Maya could not believe what she was hearing. It was like a dream come true. A legitimate shop with good tools, a proper workspace, and a mentor to learn from. It was everything her grandfather had wanted for her. Yes, Maya said without hesitation. Yes, we would be honored. Mr. Chen's shop was called Chen's Auto Repair. It was a big building with multiple work bays, hydraulic lifts, and professional-grade equipment. When Maya and her crew first walked in, they just stood there looking around in amazement. It was like going from a small bedroom to a mansion. Mr. Chen was a patient teacher. He taught them not just about fixing engines, but about running a business. He taught them about customer service, accounting, ordering parts, and managing time. He treated them with respect and gave them real responsibilities. After 3 months of working at the shop, Mr. Chen made an announcement. He was officially changing the name of the business. It would now be called Torres Chen Community Garage. Your grandfather was named Torres, correct? Mr. Chen asked Maya. Maya nodded, tears in her eyes. Then we honor him, Mr. Chen said. This shop will carry on his legacy. We will fix vehicles for people who need help. We will charge fair prices. We will be honest and work hard. That is what your grandfather believed in, yes? Yes, Maya whispered. The grand reopening of Torres Chen Community Garage was a big event. The mayor came. Local news crews were there. Detective Chen showed up too, off-duty just to support them. There was a ribbon-cutting ceremony. Mr. Chen asked Maya to do the honors. She stood in front of the shop with big scissors in her hand. Her crew stood beside her. Her mother was there crying happy tears. Many people from their neighborhood came to show support. This is for you, Grandpa, Maya said quietly before cutting the ribbon. The crowd cheered. Cameras flashed. The new sign above the garage lit up for the first time. Torres Chen Community Garage. It was official. In the months that followed, the garage became very successful. People came from all over the city to get their vehicles repaired. They came because they knew they would get honest service at fair prices. They came because they believed in what the garage stood for. Maya turned 18 and graduated from high school. Mr. Chen offered her a full partnership in the business. She would own half the garage and continue learning from him until she was ready to take over completely. The crew stayed together. Jake managed the customer service side of the business. Sophia became the best motorcycle specialist in the city. Carlos overcame his anxiety and became confident working with electrical systems. Marcus, Devin, and Lisa all found their own specialties. They were a team. A family. One evening, after all the customers had left and the garage was quiet, Maya sat in the office looking at old photos. There was a picture of her grandfather in his younger days, standing in front of his original warehouse. He was smiling, covered in grease, holding a wrench. She took out her own phone and took a selfie. She was in the same pose, holding a wrench, covered in grease, smiling. She put the two photos side by side. I did it, Grandpa, she said softly. I took everything you taught me and I made something good. I saved my friends. I helped catch bad guys. I built a business that helps people. You would be proud. Detective Chen, who had become a friend over the months, sometimes stopped by the garage just to say hello. One day he pulled Maya aside. You know, he said, when I surrounded that warehouse, I thought I was catching criminals. I never expected to meet a group of kids with so much courage and integrity. You taught me something important that day. You taught me to look deeper, to not judge too quickly. Thank you for that. Thank you for listening to us, Maya replied. Thank you for giving us a chance to prove we were innocent. You did not just prove you were innocent, the detective said. You proved you were exceptional. As the sun set over the city, Maya stood in the doorway of Torres Chen Community Garage. She watched the cars driving by. She listened to the sounds of the city. She smelled the familiar scent of oil and gasoline. This was her place. This was her purpose. This was her grandfather's dream living on through her hands. She was no longer just Maya Torres, the teenager who loved motorcycles. She was Maya Torres, mechanic, business owner, and proof that courage and honesty could overcome any obstacle. And in the back of the garage, hidden but not forgotten, she kept a small section dedicated to her grandfather. His old tools hung on the wall. His original workbench stood in the corner. And on the wall was a sign that read, "Knowledge is power." Alberto Torres. Maya smiled every time she read that sign. Her grandfather had been right about everything. The knowledge he gave her had indeed been power. The power to save her friends, the power to prove the truth, the power to build something meaningful. The warehouse on Riverside had been torn down and rebuilt into a community center. The city had bought the property and turned it into a place where kids could learn trades and skills. Maya and her crew sometimes volunteered there, teaching young people about mechanics and engineering. The storm drain tunnels were still there, of course. The city had improved them and added better lighting. They were safer now. Sometimes Maya thought about that dark journey through the underground. It felt like a lifetime ago. Though it had only been months, that experience had changed her. It had shown her what she was capable of. It had shown her that she was stronger and braver than she ever knew. Her grandfather had prepared her for that moment. even though he could not have known exactly what would happen. As the garage closed for the night and her crew went home to their families, Maya stayed behind for a few extra minutes. She walked through the empty bays, running her hand along the clean workbenches. She breathed in the smell of fresh paint and clean tools. This was redemption. This was recognition. This was home. And it was just the beginning.